Good morning, Michael. Hi, Paul.
Morning, gang.
Good morning.
Good morning.
There he is. Hello, Jeff.
Howdy. How's
Happy
everybody
Friday.
today? Yeah, happy Friday. All right, everybody ready to do this? Yeah. All right, 6 weeks done. Got a few more to go. Let me go ahead and get this thing screen share going. So I was just talking to somebody about how it feels to be this far through session. I think it's a little bit like mile 20 in a marathon. Get some people that are hitting their stride and some people are bonking. And I had a little bit of a bonk this week with a bout of the Tallahassee crud, but I'm on the tail end of that. But anyway, I've got the calendars for next week for the House and the Senate. What you have at this point is many fewer committees taking place and a lot more activity around the appropriations process. They're pretty far apart right now, the House and Senate, on the whole budget structure. And that's because they've got a pretty big disagreement on a matter of tax policy. If y'all haven't heard about it, there's been debate about the fun part is you've got the governor and the legislature all desiring to trim government, make it more efficient, provide more tax relief to the citizens and visitors of Florida. The difficult part is they have completely different visions on how to deliver that strategy. So the point of saying all of that is typically at this point, both the House and the Senate have delivered their budget bills. They're available to look at. The governor's budget request has been out there for a while. When you look at comparing them, there's a lot of differences and not a lot of detail yet because they haven't agreed on the kind of the top line items. Excuse me. I will say that both the House and the Senate have lower budgets than the governor asked for, and both of those budgets are significantly lower than last year. So, we are expecting some trimming in some of the grant, maybe grant programs and some of the environmental spending. All right, so let's get back to the schedule. So this is next week in the Senate. There are, you'll see just these appropriation, these, APP, these are appropriation subcommittees of Health and Human Services and Education and Transportation and Ag and higher education and criminal. So they're all working on budget stuff. There are no more policy committees meeting anymore. So any bills that have not made it through their policy committees and into appropriations committees are probably dead, almost certainly dead, but never completely dead, because they can always change their rules if there's a priority of a House or Senate leader and it becomes a bargaining chip and can be pulled out of a lower committee. But for the most part, procedurally, standard SOP, all those bills are going to be dead. So when I do get to the bill list, I've kind of drawn a red line, and everything below that red line, I'm just declaring it as dead as you can declare without having, omnipotence. Excuse me. The Rules Committee, which is one of the big committees, and the Fiscal Policy Committee, which is the big Appropriations Committee, they're still meeting. That's the last stop in the Senate for bills that make their way through the committee process. The House situation is pretty similar. You'll see a lot of budget committees still meeting, but no more policy committees. And then the big committees in session, of course, there'll be a lot more floor time as bills make it down to the floor. They need to spend time getting to second reading and then third reading and passage. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. So this report got shared kind of late last night. Laura, I apologize. I got that to you all about 5:30. I don't know if it's been posted. Hopefully it has. If it hasn't, we'll definitely get it out. But this is the bill report that I ran yesterday afternoon, late afternoon. So it it has almost all the actions from yesterday. I did see a couple of meetings that were, or a couple of committees were meeting late yesterday, and so there may be a couple of things that aren't completely captured in this report, but anyway, it's pretty close. So as always, it's ordered from recent action down to no action at the bottom. I did fool around a little bit with some ordering here. I put a couple of companions together just so we could talk about them. And then I did move some things up above the red line for reasons that I'll explain in a minute. But they're still kind of ordered from action to no action. And then I created this red line here to show you that I don't think any of these down here have, really any chance. So if there's anything down there at the bottom, y'all can start to purge them from your mind. For this year at least. All right, so let's get into it. Unless anybody has any questions, I'll pause for a minute. And I do have the chat up. If I'm on a tear and you want to type something in chat, I'll look over at it. All right, so state land management is on the floor in the House, and the Senate companion is on the second stop. That Senate companion had not been moving at all, but it did get through its first stop, and so maybe it has a chance. This has got a lot of state park stuff in here. If you care about that stuff, look at that stuff. There's a little bit of tweaking to the division of state lands and some of their process. But that's about all I have to say about that. I've not been watching it closely, but it's on the floor of the House, added to special order calendar, which means they're gonna take it up next week and vote on it. The DAX bill, SB 700, the Senate version is on the floor of the Senate. The House companion is on the third stop. This has a lot of DAX stuff in it, but notably it has the fluoride ban in here. It's not called a fluoride ban. It's just called a kind of a, you can't add supplements to water supply is how they've captured that to prohibit fluoride. So that's in there. Again, it's been absolutely a partisan divide on votes. So all the Republicans have voted for it, and I think all the Democrats have voted against it. I think that's true, and I think it's been all the way through. The brownfields bill is on the floor in the House and the Senate, and it's on special order calendar on at least on the House side. I think that's going to pass. Everybody I've talked to about it, it hasn't had a no vote. It's got a lot of goodies in there for local government and for industry. It's about more tax incentives to clean up contaminated sites. So it's got a lot of good optics around it. And notably, unlike prior versions of this bill that haven't passed in the past, it doesn't have any additional liability protections in there. So it didn't raise the hackles of the trial bar, the attorneys. So that looks like it's sailing through. This comprehensive waste reduction, this is a recycling bill. It is on the floor of the House. The Senate companion had not moved at all, but it did make it through its first stop last or this week, and so it's got a chance of moving forward. Not a lot in there, just some recycling stuff if you're interested in that. The drilling, this is Senator Corey's bill that prohibits drilling in the Apalachicola Basin. It is on the third stop in the Senate, and the House companion is on the floor. I think I may have misspoke about this in a previous call that there wasn't a House companion. I completely whiffed that. It does have a House companion and it is on the floor, so I think this may very well pass. And please forgive me if you heard what I said before and thought that wasn't going to pass. Mitigation banking has the Senate version. I want to make sure I get this right, because this is the one where there's two bills on one side and one bill on the other. So I'm not going to, in my foggy state, I'm not going to pretend to tell you I can remember which one is which. But in one chamber, it's all in one bill, and in the other chambers, there's a mitigation banking bill and a conservation easements bill. In any case, it is on the third stop in the Senate and the House is on the floor. So that looks like it's going to go this year. This has some provisions to open up the opportunity to buy credits from outside the credit service area at a premium. So you'll have to pay a bonus to Mother Earth to utilize a credit out of basin. But it does give you a relief mechanism if there's no more credits in basin, so you can still buy mitigation credits. And that's intended to align with the federal policy that matches what I just described. The former phosphate mining lands liability relief bill, this has continued to be, not unanimous. It's had some friction, but it's continued to move. It's on the floor of the Senate on calendar for second reading next week, which means they're going to hear it. The House companion's on the third stop. This provides some relief for cause of action from developers and home builders that follow all of the radon protection requirements, meet their DEP requirements, and build their housing projects on these former mining lands. They can't be sued from, again, kind of third party tort lawyers. The Water Management District bill has passed the Senate. So this is all the way through the Senate. And the House companion was laid on the table, which means they're going to take the Senate bill, they sent it over to the House, and the House will now take up the Senate bill and vote on it. And so it will be the Senate bill that gets past the governor when it's all the way through. So this is a procedural mechanism. I'll just say it one more time to make sure, because you understand it. I can answer questions about it. You don't get two bills past the chambers and send two bills to the governor. At one point, at the end of the process, they become one. There's one bill. And so what will happen is, and I don't really know why or how, I don't think it's a race. I don't think it's a matter of which bill lands first. I think it's just a decision. But this language laid on table means you abandon the House bill and you accept the Senate bill over from the Senate. And that happens after they pass it. So that happened here with the Water Management District bill. It is on the floor of the House. So I think this is going to pass. However, it is still, I believe, a bargaining chip between the House and the Senate, since it's a priority of the Senate president and not an express priority of the House Speaker. And because there's still budget, there's still a big divide between their budget agreement. I think this is going to get traded. So yes, Michael.
I was just curious, Brent and company met with the ACEC committee last 2 weeks ago at South Florida. And I was just wondering if anybody down there has mentioned it, or if anybody's heard from Drew on what they think about this. Do they care? Or
I talked to Drew. I mean, I'd love to hear what they said last week at the meeting, Brent. Go ahead.
Yeah, they basically said they were watching it very closely. They had a lot of different types of concerns. I think from the district perspective, what I had heard was one of their concerns was the schedule implications, as far as being expected to hit certain schedules with projects, and if not, having to answer new questions that aren't normally answered. And then just generally the mechanics of what the involvement of the legislature in some of the kind of project execution would look like. But in the discussion, there was talk about if there was any impact to how procurement of design services or projects would happen, and the district didn't think there were, but it was just kind of noted. But I'm sure what Jeff, you and Drew talked about was probably more insightful. We were talking with kind of just the engineering bureau chief.
Well, so I mean, not surprisingly, I think Drew was echoing what he heard from his team. He's got just concerns about the extra friction on project delivery, and the balancing kind of policy debate here is, from the legislature's perspective, they've spent $2.5 billion or whatever in a relatively short period of time. And they just want to have kind of a lot more awareness of where and how. It's just a little bit about control. You know, the appropriators want to see a little bit more detail and want to have a little bit more involvement and not just continue to churn the money down there, you know, launch it down there in a rocket. But this is Albritton and this is Broder. Like these are two individuals that feel this way. And they're in senior enough positions that they get to push, this pretty hard.
Well, on the mechanics of it, if the House bill is laid on the table as you described, the Senate bill is the one, it's already passed. There's not really anything that's going to change now. The only thing that might change about it is I guess, can the governor do anything to change it, or what it is right now is what it's going to be unless the governor
No.
doesn't sign it?
No. The governor can only, this is not budget, this is a bill. So the governor can only veto or sign it.
Or
So
approve.
he can't change it. But
Right.
in messages, so the process of messages does allow for amendments. So the Senate version has passed. The Senate is kind of done with their version. They flipped it to the House. Now the House can throw an amendment on it. Excuse me, vote on it, pass it, and then flip it back to the Senate. At that point, they would have to send it back to the Senate in messages.
Okay.
Excuse me. So they can do a little bit of ping pong. And that's why I think this bill, and that's the process of the budget, by the way, too. You got a House version, you got a Senate version. And they do this back and forth on different components of the budget. They're passing it back and forth constantly, voting on those amendments, all of that ping pong that happens. They're going to be these other bills can do that too. So if it becomes very, very important for the House Speaker to have a certain budget item in, and the Senate says, okay, I'll give it to you, but you owe me X, Y, or Z, that trading happens with some of these bills. And I believe, because it was advertised as a priority of the Senate president, and it was not advertised as a priority of the House Speaker. This has all the recipe of
the leverage of
a leverage bill. So,
okay.
So to get something that the House wants, the House will get to put something that it wants on this bill, and they'll flip it back to the Senate.
I got it. Huh. Is there anything that Drew wanted us to advocate for, or you think we should advocate for? And
I think this is way over our pay grade, ladies and gentlemen.
That makes sense.
And it's interesting, neither of these congressmen are within South Florida, right? Broder.
Albritton.
The speaker
Albritton
is in. Both of them have property.
And the speaker. Yeah, they're both
Oh.
South Florida people.
Okay, well that's interesting.
Albritton is like an Okeechobee guy, so he's a Northern Everglades ag guy.
Okay.
And Avila is a Miami guy. So
Albritton is Wauchula. He's Hardy County, which is southwest of Okeechobee.
yeah,
Okay.
Thank you for being more precise than I'm capable of this morning.
That's interesting. I would have thought there would be some push from people outside of South Florida. I didn't realize that.
Jeff,
right.
just
Thank you, Jeff.
while we're on this topic, could you talk about, I know we had a side conversation about one of the requests in that meeting was, in the weeds, but the mileage reimbursement rate.
Oh, yeah. So,
and that was something that the district staff and our ACEC membership were both interested in, because it's just kind of, past the times for us to get that corrected.
yeah, it's past the time. Well, it's never over till it's over, but practically speaking, it's past the time to amend Chapter 112 or whatever that statutory reference is that has the mileage rate for all state agencies. It's not just a water management district rate. It's hotel, it's per diem, it's mileage, and it affects all state employees and water management district employees. So that's in law. And interestingly, and I didn't know this until you brought this to my attention, Brett, it names a number in the law, and that number hasn't changed in like 20 years. So it's way low. Same thing with per diem and same thing with hotel. So Broder is aware of it. Senator Broder, I believe, he did not tell me. So this is all third hand hearsay, can't be inadmissible in a court of law. But
I assume that's everything we talk about here is in that same.
Well, I mean, if I tell you I have a direct knowledge, I'll tell you, but yeah, this is the rumor is, and it's a reliable source that Broder is aware of it, and Broder has language that can be added to the budget bill this year that would change it this year. Sorry, for the 25-26 fiscal year. So
That'd be awesome.
you can make 1 year changes in a budget bill because you're basically saying for this fiscal year with this budget, we are directing, state bean counters that do mileage reimbursement stuff. We are directing you to use this higher rate. It's not in law, it's in the budget. And so you can make those kind of tweaks if there's a budget component to it, but it only lives within that one budget. So it's a way to get some relief for the 25-26 fiscal year. And then next year they can run an amendment to 112, open that up. When they open that up, this is, I think, one of the concerns that I've heard is then people are going to be asking about per diem and hotels and everything else.
Yeah.
And, it just could be a Pandora's box.
Yeah, I'll just say as an ad, we've been asking this question for a decade. And, 10 years ago, the state folks were like, yeah, that's your problem. We're following the statute. Now, everybody agrees this is just a problem. The cost just for us to provide the truck and the inspector on these sites that are kind of out in the middle of nowhere, it's becoming an issue that even they recognize they're not able to reimburse us at a rate that makes it worth us having a truck on site. And that obviously we all think we need a truck on site, and it's just like they want it changed now. It's not just them telling us to eat it. They agree. So I think we're at a point where, there's pretty unanimous consensus, at least that the people in that table, much lower than the decision makers. But yeah, if there's anything we can do to help it in this budget, let us know. And anything we can do next year in the committee week period to help it, let us know. And I'm happy to be exact and just say we're looking for the mileage. We're not trying to do per diem. If that's what
I love that South Florida asked, right? I mean, that's, we're meeting with them all the time and we're constantly saying, what can we do to help? And this is one of the first times they've had something that we can do. So anything we can do to say, hey, we pushed on this, just to give them the feedback that this will work, I think that was really good. So.
Well, here you go, Brent. So were you on CLGR yesterday? I can't remember.
I was not. No.
Okay.
Sorry.
So they voted yes, or whatever the vote equivalent that they have at CLGR. And John Johnson is going to talk to Broder and tell him that we support it.
Cool.
And so when it happens, so don't oversell
I will
our
not
capability
say
yet.
anything.
when it shows up in the implementing bill, John Johnson will tell us, and then you can call South Florida and say, we did that.
We'll wait
point at
for
it
that
and
moment.
say,
But yeah, I appreciate the effort.
take a screenshot, circle that item, put an arrow there, and text it to whoever will appreciate it the most.
Yeah.
And there you go. You can say we did something.
Will do.
All right.
Thanks, Jeff.
No problem. All right. So getting back to the bill list, unless there's any more comments on that. Okay. Distributed wastewater treatment has finished all the committees and is on the House and Senate floor. It is on the special order calendar for next week in the Senate. It looks like it's going to pass. Spring restoration. This is the AWT and reclaim water in outstanding Florida springs. Priority focus areas. That's also a Bill Connerly bill. These last three have all been Bill Connerly bills, by the way. He has been remarkably successful as a freshman getting bills all the way through. It's passed the Senate already and is in messages with the House. So that's his first bill passed. Well, the Senate side wasn't his, but anyway, he's doing great. The stormwater management system, SB 810, that requires MS4s to do the annual inspections and report to DEM. That is on the floor of the Senate, but there's still no House companion. And I did double and triple check to make sure that there wasn't something sneaky out there. If anybody has heard anything different, maybe I missed something, but I looked pretty hard for that language and I did not see it anywhere in any House bill. So the only way, all right, sorry. Okay, the only way that could make it through, even though it's on the floor of the Senate, is if it gets amended onto, that language gets amended onto a House bill and passed by the House, and then they would have to square it up in messages. But that looks like a kind of a success in the Senate, but zero action in the House and probably dead.
Hey,
Yes,
Jeff,
sir. Yeah,
this is Doug. On the 810, SB
Yep.
810,
yep.
it got amended into SB 180.
It got what?
Amended into the SB 180 Emergency and Preparedness Bill.
Oh, crap. All right. So, and that probably has a
But-
House companion.
But yeah, its House companion is HB 1535. It was amended twice. The 810 language was amended and put into 180. The new
Okay.
version is a lot more watered down. It basically just reiterates to do inspections per your MS4 permit.
Okay.
It's very much watered down from what it was, and then it exempts FDOT and toll authorities.
Okay. Thank you for that, Doug. I'll do a deep dive on that and make sure I get it squared away in the
Yeah.
report. Thank you. Thank
The
you for
language
that.
is not in the House Bill 1535, but it's as you say in messages. So I don't know
Okay.
if that means they could just adopt it and not have to send it back to the Senate.
Yeah, that's what they would have to do. All right, I'll look that up,
Okay.
and thank you very much for that insight.
Sure.
I appreciate it. All right, so we got 3 minutes left, so let me try to run through the rest of these. So this is the House version. This is Connerly's version of the Water Management District bill. It's been laid on the table. There's the Brownfields bill. We already talked about that. There's the House bill mitigation. The Senate companions are the ones that are split. So this bill 1175 has got the mitigation bank and the conservation easement language in the same bill. It is on the floor, and the two Senate companions are, well, here's the other one. It's on the third stop of the Senate. Both of them are on the third stop on the Senate. Special districts bill is on the third stop in the House, and the companion's not moving. This is one of those where I'm not sure it's going to go. Nothing really terribly interesting in here to me, other than this abolishing the soil and water conservation districts and moving that function over to DAX. There's a bunch of other stuff in there for special districts, but like I said, the Senate companion's not moving. There's the Bill Connolly's distributed wastewater treatment. It's on the floor of the House on the calendar for next week. Former phosphate mining lands we talked about. Springs restoration we talked about. That's Bill Connolly's bill on the floor. The one water approach to water resource management is on the third stop in the House. On the Senate side, it's in journal. It's a journal entry. This is just a resolution. It's not a policy bill. So I don't understand procedurally how those things get squared up, but that kind of is on a razor's edge whether it makes it this year. Water access facility is a clean marine manufacturer thing. It has passed the House completely and is in fiscal policy in the Senate. So they are gonna, it looks like they're gonna see that in one Senate committee before it goes to the House or to the Senate floor. There's the DAX bill, the House companion. It's on the third stop. Administrative procedures. We haven't talked about this yet. It's kind of down here because it has already passed the Senate and hasn't moved in a while because it's passed and it's in messages in the House. But it's on the third committee stop in state affairs in the House. And this is the one that changes the statement of estimated regulatory costs procedure. We talked about that at length or with more detail last week. Nature-based methods. This is the coastal resilience, living shoreline stuff. It's on the floor of the House. It has already passed the Senate. This looks like it's going to pass. It's kind of down here far on the list because these are ones that have kind of already made it. And you'll start to see some more of that in the last couple of weeks. Some ones that have already kind of gone all the way are going to be down here. There's the house companion. Waste incineration, I put them together. This is the prohibiting the waste to energy facility in Miami-Dade. They're both in the third stop in the House and Senate. Not sure if they're going to make it, but they could still make it. State land management, we talked about that at the beginning, and comprehensive waste reduction, the recycling bill, we talked about that in the beginning. So that's the list of everything that's still alive. This one is kind of barely alive because it's on the second stop. Everything else down here, I think, is dead because either one or the other hasn't moved at all, or both haven't moved at all. So these are bills that in some cases never even got referred to committee. That's what these introduced means. So you can, again, ignore these. 9:45. Who's got a last question or joke or something interesting? All right, engineers, hearing none, not surprised. Y'all have a great weekend.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right,
You
thanks,
too.
everybody.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right,
Thank you,
take care.
Jeff.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.